Good morning and welcome to Perspectives. Perspectives. This morning on Invicta 98.9. And this morning, I'm sure we all are glad to be alive today. And of course, we woke up to see, a bright day of this sort. And of course, just walking into the day and with the relaxation of the lockdown, ease to do business now and people to, free to move around, but with conditions again. We'll talk about all of that. The new normal, as people say, that we are into now because of COVID-19. Life, they say, may never be the same again for us in all we do. Our social life, is curtailed now because we have to, observe some, certain rules to live our social life. And of course, our businesses again will have to take another turn. And all we'll do, into, making us, conform with the new normal. To discuss, yesterday, I'm sure that we all have had it from the number one citizen himself, and that's talking about the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai, talking to the people of Kaduna State yesterday, thanking them for their patience, thanking them for their understanding, and why it was necessary to put in those measures that were there or put in place to save our lives and make Kaduna safe for all of us. Now we're glad that again we can begin to move to do normal things in a new normal way. It is not yet for people that will say, yes, let's just go out and have a blast. It is not yet that. Of course, we have to be sure that COVID-19 is totally gotten rid of, and then we can come back to doing what we know how to do best. Now, put more light and shed more light on all that the governor, talked to the citizens about yesterday. I have with me in the studios Alhaji Ibrahim Musa. Malam Ibrahim Musa.
Thank you very much, Tony Alabi, my friend, colleague, and sparring partner. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Good morning, listeners.
Yes. Malam Ibrahim Musa is the special assistant to the governor on media and publicity. Special assistant to Governor Nasiru El-Rufai on media and publicity. And so we'll just be talking about all that, we had from the governor yesterday. And of course, even before then, the lockdown, where it became necessary to put Kaduna into, over 2 months of it, 2.5 months, some people say. And it was not, for us, a thing that we were all happy about in Kaduna State. But again, it was basically to keep us safe. Malam Ibrahim Musa, the governor, apologizing and talking to the people, telling the people to understand why it became necessary to put in those measures. And the measures are still here with us. We must still go on with them. But again, getting more light into areas where the governor had talked about how we can go about, living our lives. Now, for you, a general overview of Governor Nasiru El-Rufai's address to the citizens yesterday.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tony Alabi, for having me on your show. And listeners, good morning. The highlights of His Excellency Governor Nasiru El-Rufai's address yesterday or broadcast to the state is can be simply summarized as follows. Well, there's been an amendment on the quarantine order as from today, Wednesday. And, the restriction on intrastate movement, meaning moving, for example, from Kaduna to Zaria, has been lifted, but the all-night curfew remains. That is from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. Again, interstate travel is still banned, meaning moving from Kaduna to Kano is still banned, or Kaduna to Abuja or wherever. So let's get this clear. Intrastate, within state, Kaduna to Kafanchan, Kaduna to Zonkwa, Kaduna to Zaria has been lifted. People can travel within. But going outside the state still remains banned. And businesses can open. And but they have to be conditions. There will have to be thermometers to measure temperatures of customers. There has to be social distancing. There has to be sanitizers and places for customers to wash their hands and running water and soap. And of course, the working hours of most of these businesses should be within 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily. So
All businesses must close at
all
3 p.m.
businesses must close at 3 p.m. except otherwise directed by His Excellency the Executive Governor of Kaduna State. That's what the order says. Church services will be open on Sundays only. Also, Friday prayers will commence. But for our Muslim brothers, the 5 daily prayers cannot be said in the mosque. People should still say their prayers at home. But on Fridays, there will be congregational prayers, but subject to the conditions attached as above, i.e., social distancing, washing your hands in running water or sanitizers, and generally keeping what you call observing the COVID-19 protocol. This should remain in place while services or congregational prayers are on. So, apart from that, again, transport operators, i.e., buses and taxis, should take very limited number of people. They should reduce their capacity by 50%. Supermarkets also can be open their businesses, but all kinds of businesses like hairdressing salons and barbing salons can open, but also should provide or conform with the COVID-19 protocol. Hotels can really open fully, and restaurants too should be offering room services, i.e., hotels can open, people can go lodge, but their restaurant remains closed. And restaurants generally, the stand-alone restaurants without hotels, can open but give takeaways, not sit down and eat in, but really buy your food and go home and eat. So, public servants, have been at home most of the time. Only a few category of workers come to do some kind of work, even that virtually. The head of service will work out how they would resume to work in phases. Right now, as it is, from all I've said, in summary, there's, let me say, 80% open up, so to speak. But markets and schools remain closed. Let's underline that. Markets and schools remain closed. But the government is engaging with relevant stakeholders to see the possibility of opening them, because these are really crowd pulling centers, and the protocol has to be worked out very, very carefully. If not, we will turn the hands of our clock backwards in our fight against the pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yes, more light on that. But again, on businesses, again, 9 to 3 p.m. at resumption and closing at 3 p.m. Would that also mean that the banks and all the business premises, would have to stay within the time limit of 9 to 3 p.m.?
Of course, yeah. They remain closed. Yeah, that's what the order says. The quarantine order is quite clear about these things. Businesses, it says. And businesses can include petty trading, it can include commodity sales, it could include high-tech businesses, and it includes businesses in the service sector, like you mentioned, banks. So I didn't segregate about the manner of business. It's like an all-embracing world of businesses. They remain shut or open rather from 9 to 3 p.m. So this is what the law says, and this is what should be our guiding principle in our bid to enjoy our newfound freedom.
Let me bring it again. One aspect of life, that Kaduna people are used to, and that's about nightlife.
Yeah.
And the nightlife will also mean that some people would want to operate businesses at night time. Well, we know that it's 9 to 3 p.m.
Yes.
But for night time, where life continues, would we have such petty traders and petty shops, opening to do business at night, since we are all at a new normal now?
The new normal the new normal includes the curfew at night.
At night.
Yes.
Yes.
So that precludes opening of businesses at night. And for whatever it's worth, we can suspend that aspect of life in a bid to save lives.
All right, I'm also looking at nightlife is out. I mean, talking about the clubs and such areas that people, because the pool crowd. I mean, so we do not want crowd.
Yes, you see, entertainment is a pastime. We're talking of survival now. Life is at stake. It's when you have life and you enjoy it to the fullness that you think of entertainment. And entertainment is an adjunct of survival. Let's get that clear. At the phase we are in the middle of a war against an unknown virus, and we're trying to reinvent the wheel and how to navigate it, and how to open up and open businesses, and how to get society running again, and how to lead a near normal life as possible. So nightlife, as in clubbing, is a pastime we should not even contemplate.
Something came up all about, the COVID-19 thing. We're still with it, and COVID-19 is real. It's here with us, and of course, getting to get about it. And one thing that also came out during that period, at the height of it, was government giving out palliatives, to cushion the effect of the hard times of the COVID-19. Palliatives. Well, we're going into a new normal now, or we are in a new normal, and just way of asking, the palliatives, would they have been seen to have been locked down now that we're about to begin to live our lives, the way we used to?
Well, let me start by saying there was a first round of palliatives were given, and it covered about 9 local governments about 2 months ago. The second phase had just finished. It finished about 2 weeks ago, and it covered 14 local governments. Before this order, there was supposed to be a third phase to cover the entire 23 local government areas. So as it is now, since people have been given a window to go out and eke out a living, I'm not in a position to say right now whether this third phase will continue. Because the idea of the palliative was that this lockdown has quote and unquote incapacitated people who live by the day, who are into small businesses, who cannot go out because of this, who because of that has put them in a kind of bind. Be that as it may, government in its wisdom found the necessity to help this category of people, at least with what to eat. And that is the philosophy behind the palliative in the first place. So now that there's, let me say, an opening, or openings, so to speak, and people can really go out, government, the way I see it, the compassionate government of Governor Nasir El-Rufai, in my view, this is my opinion, please, may continue with the third phase. I'm not sure about that. But the first phase was in pipeline before this opening came. Whether the third phase will commence is what I cannot say now and here. But it was in the pipeline. 2 phases have gone, the first phase and the second phase. And there's been a learning curve, and people are happy with the distribution, and it went down to people who are targeted. And that's been that.
Oh, the poor and the vulnerable will still be there.
Yeah.
And so, if it continues, one would see it as good for us.
Yeah, it is very good for everybody. The poor and vulnerable have always been there since creation. That's the fact of life. And people have always, there are two religions always preach being our neighbor's keepers, right? And in Islam, a neighbor is not just a man next door, but about 70 houses back and front, and both right and left. So it's a wild thing. So the distribution of palliatives in this context should not just be localized by the government. People who are a bit well off should also help, which they have really. We commend the people for that. People have been given their widows' mites, and people have been their brothers' keepers in this pandemic, and we should continue. But the government will also complement. I'm sure about that because don't forget the slogan of this administration is putting people first. So in this regard, the best way to put people first is to make their stomach feel the impact.
Well, again, what we're into is being said to be a new normal.
Yeah.
Now, a new normal that we may never live our lives the way we used to. Because
Definitely. The things the pandemic has changed the entire dynamics of human relations. From the way we meet, from the way we do conduct our businesses, from the way we work, from the way we eat, from the way we socialize. So it's a whole gamut of new normal. So much so that we are really at our wits' end trying to navigate this because it has never happened before. So there's no template to work on. And we are just reinventing the wheel. Don't forget now we have virtual meetings, small startups like Zoom because of the preponderance of virtual meetings have become up there as high net worth businesses because everyone is zooming and meeting, and people no longer shake hands, and the people understand if I stretch my hand and you don't clasp, you know. These are things we're used to. It's reflex before. When I see Tony Alabi, I maybe go beyond shaking his hands and embrace him. But this cannot be done now. In fact, there's a distance between us now that we're talking. That may not be what was obtainable years back. So, really, new normal describes aptly our present situation globally because even the developed countries are trying to see how they can cope with this new way of life. And we are also doing our best, at least in Kaduna State, to do that.
we are going about with activities of government before COVID-19 hit and the impacts that it left behind, and of course, may still be living behind. Kaduna was into, reforms, so it was urban renewal and all of that, were going on. And again, we're back to a new normal, and just wondering if, government's drive for the reforms would continue with the speed it came, it started with.
Well, one of the defining attributes of this government is that it looks ahead. Way before people woke up to the reality of this new virus, the government has devised all manner of strategies to cut costs. Overheads have been slashed by 50%. Allowances have also been slashed. No more foreign trips, or even local ones for that matter, and a whole array of things. The governor set up a committee headed by the Deputy Governor, Her Excellency Dr. Hadiza Balarabi, and they brainstormed and came out with a blueprint which was tabled to the State Executive Council, and a resolution was made. So, having said that, the government was adequately prepared, so to speak, for this, because we knew it would come to this. That when businesses start shutting abroad, our oil will not be sold, or the prices will crash, and revenue will drop, and we'll come to a lockdown where IGR will really drop, and so the monies at disposal of government will dwindle. So what will be the fate of our projects? So the government has said in one of his media chats, the governor has categorically said that only recurrent charges, cost of expenditure will be affected, i.e. cost of running government, i.e. cost of the emolument, but salaries will not be touched. And our projects will not continue apace. And even during the lockdown, you can see the Banana Road is still moving. You're a witness to it. And all our urban renewal projects have been on. And if you see Yakubu Gawan Way, people have been working day and night. And some people are saying it was even some kind of blessing that lockdown came, because it afforded their contractors to continue working without undue interference and hindrances from pedestrians and motorists. So, coming back to your question, these projects are signature projects of the administration, and they will continue, at the pace they started, even during the lockdown, the 75 days that were at home. If you notice, these things have continued, and by the grace of God, they will continue, because the financing has been worked out long before now. The government is a thinking government and a forward-looking one, which envisaged all manner of things and all manner of scenarios, and worked towards that. So there are plans in place for these projects to continue. I think there's no cause for alarm.
Okay, it took its toll on us, COVID-19, and of course, when the governor and government of the state asked for, citizens, especially the public workforce, to, have understanding of what, was before us, and then it led to cut in salaries and all of that. Top civil servants, what had to happen to their cost and their court and all of that. Are we, when are we going to see, return back to normal?
Full salary.
Full salary, I'm thinking about.
Well, I would like to return back to that normal you're talking about, because I also wear the shoe. The governor wears the shoe, and everyone wears the shoe, and we all know where it pinches. Having said that, the court, contrary to impressions out there, the court is not limited to civil servants. Like you rightly pointed out, the court is across board, including public servants. Every person who draws salary from the treasury of Kaduna State is affected, from the governor to the messenger. Commissioners are losing half of their salaries. So people who are complaining that 25% of their salaries were touched, I think are not being fair, because they want to be treated specially. They don't want to make the necessary sacrifice. These cuts that we're talking about, we should ask, what are they being made for? It's not to finance projects. It's from these monies that we buy, or the government buys, palliatives for the vulnerable and less privileged in society. The government figured out that there are just 100,000 max workers across local government and state level. But salary, Brody, 2 months ago, the statutory grant that we got from federal government, 90% of that was spent on this 10%, or 100,000 people. So how can 90% of resources go to this? What of the less privileged and vulnerable? What of people who don't work for government? It doesn't make sense for a government to exist just to pay salaries. Not just to pay salaries, to devote 90% of its resources to just paying salaries. So the government, in its wisdom, and rightly so, said, look, gentlemen, okay, we're happy we have some work. We have some job. We're holding on to a job. Let's give some part of our salaries so as to get things, monies to buy from, buy palliatives, buy foodstuff, buy food items, and give to these category of people who ordinarily could have gone out to eke out a living but for this lockdown. That's the philosophy behind the cuts. It's not to fund urban renewal. It's not. It's to buy this food stuff because we don't want, or government doesn't want to use 90% pay salaries, 10% again use it to buy food stuff. Well, then that means we're arriving on the spot, so to speak. So we said this 90% that this 100,000 maximum staff across local governments and states that receive this 90% of resources, just part with a percentage so that we would be our brother's keeper, truly so. But it's been misconstrued as something else. Well, that's politics.
Okay, the program is Perspectives this morning, and with us in the studios, Malam Ibrahim Musa, Special Assistant to the Governor on Media and Publicity. We'll come back after this break.
Invicta FM. Hey,
Welcome back. Is the program Perspectives this morning on Invicta 98.9, and Malam Ibrahim Musa, a Special Assistant to the Governor on Media and Publicity, with us in the studios this morning. COVID-19, it came with all, from all sides, and it was the topic of the world. It was a world matter or a world issue, and so different governments of the world treated it differently. But again, one thing that stood out was that measures that were taken about this was all about the same all over the world. But back home in Nigeria, let's look at the myths that surrounded COVID-19, believability of it, and of course, scam that came about it again, and trust of government into all of this. It came with its suspicion and all that, and people, really putting meanings into a reality of life. I mean, that COVID-19 is a reality, and the world saw how it took away lives, and so many people that died and all of that. But back home in Nigeria, interpretations were also given to COVID-19 that bordered around how sincere was government about, the measures it took and all of that. Can you put voice to this?
Well, the sincerity of government is not in doubt. The sincerity led to a lockdown of 75 days. The sincerity made governments to lose revenue and individuals losing revenue. The sincerity of government made it to consult with stakeholders was the way forward. The sincerity of purpose made the government to discuss with professionals. The sincerity of government made of the Standing Committee on COVID-19 of Kaduna State, which is headed by Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Balarabe, meets every day, including Sundays, to get updates of news cases and how to go about dealing with the pandemic. So all these measures that are taken, I don't know how sincere and serious government can be if these things are not self-evident. But you see, in this world, cynics will always be there. They've been there since the time of creation. You remember when Jesus Christ was resurrecting, people were saying, he can't be. I nailed him. He couldn't go up. So cynicism started from there, so to speak. When Noah was building his ark, people were skeptical. Up till now, coming back home, people are skeptical even of polio that leaves a mark. Don't forget, COVID-19 claims lives. That one, it goes with its evidence, so to speak. But polio leaves traces. But people are still in denial. So you cannot do anything about these people on the fringes of society. And don't forget, knowledgeable professors have also debunked it as a myth. You cannot say they are not educated. You cannot, they've written books, but conspiracy theories will always abound. We have learned to live with it, just like we should learn to live with the virus. But for everyone, it's so evident for even the blind to see that this thing has claimed lives. It is claiming lives. Government, at least in Kaduna State that I know of, has taken all measures humanly possible to stop the spread of the virus. That is it. There's nothing more to say.
I'm just looking at it. Yeah, government showing concern, to its people. The palliatives, they were giving out. It's Nigerians, and in their numbers, questioned the palliatives that were put in place, whether it was in cash or what we see with foodstuff and all of that. Wondering if such palliatives could have in any way taken care of the average Nigerian family. That was a question about palliatives too.
Well, the palliatives of the second round of distribution can take care of a family. There's 10 kg of rice. There's 5 kilogram of the semovita or corn flour. There's cartons of noodles. There's also cartons of spaghetti. And there's 5 kg of cooking oil, and there's sugar. That's in a pack. So, averagely, for an average Nigerian family, it can really take care of. It can go a long way. We can't say it will wipe out hunger completely, but like the word is, it's a palliative. Just something to provide some kind of relief and succor. The stopgap kind of arrangement. Really, the one that is distributed in Kaduna State, which I'm privy to because I was at the committee of the third round of distribution. I was there as the media focal person, and from get-go, from concept to distribution, I was part of it. So I can speak authoritatively on that. If you look at the social media, people who collected the palliatives, you see them in white Kaduna State branded bags. You see a sack full of these things in them. That was a mistake of the first one. The first one, the first round of distribution. It was given, people used discretion. The coordinators used discretion to distribute. But they're coming forward, moving forward. In the second round, we eliminated human discretion as much as possible. The committee did that in choosing who the beneficiaries should be, in choosing what food items should be put in together for a household, and even in the trying to communicate clearly how the process is being undertaken and how the disbursement was done. I was part of it. So I can say this authoritatively that the palliatives went to the target group. So not everybody got as it should be expected. Because people who are in need are in multitude. It's a human problem. Because wants are many, or people in wants are many, and the resources are scarce. It's a basic economic human principle. But those who got, and those who got received, and those who received praised government for that, and those who received said it went a long way. So, was people saying they have not seen, they have not heard? Of course, somebody who will phone Tony Alabi in his program Perspective to complain that he has not seen palliative, it's not meant for him in the first place. He even has phone to call. He has credits to call and complain or to contribute to the to nation building and statecraft. It's not for him. Don't forget, one of the factors that was chosen for the recipients of the palliatives are people who recharge less than 100 naira a month in their phones. It's one of these. And we drew the list, we did the list from the communication companies, from the telecommunication companies. They have database of everyone, and any recharge you do, you see. So, for example, Cubao local government, who are the people who recharge less than 100 naira a month? The names could come out. Then we'll match it with the names of the coordinators who brought names, yes, and he's automatically a beneficiary. So that kind of person will not call and complain because ab initio he doesn't have the credits, in fact, in his phone. So let's understand the context with which these palliatives were, the measures were conceptualized, and the people who are supposed to be beneficiaries and the people who are complaining. These are two different people. And to say government officials diverted, I mean, is the most unkind statement I've ever had. I was born in this town. I have relatives in this town who are supposed to benefit. None of us put a name. I'm speaking on air. Everyone knows me. Most of the people in this state know me. If I ever give a relative a penalty, and I was there. Each time the chair of the committee, the respected Madam Balarabe Abbas, who is the secretary to the state government, keeps telling us that we should be guided by our consciences. That whatever we do will be blamed. But let's be clear in our conscience that we've done the right thing. That please, let's not abuse our privilege. And we're handpicked. People were headhunted and chosen specifically for this committee. It was not an all-comers thing. People of perceived integrity were brought on board to do this distribution. People, senior government officials, not less than permanent secretaries and commissioners. People of high integrity. And we said no politician should be given. Political contribution should not be a consideration. These were the things we put in place. These were the things that were used as templates for distribution. But what do you hear out there? No. Some people say no, it was. Some people said politicians were not involved. That is why the thing failed, or that's why the impact was not felt. Other people are saying it was politicized. So let me give you an example. For each of the distribution, there are what you call cluster committees. A cluster committee comprises two women, a clergy and an Islamic cleric, where the society is homogeneous. You take two sects of the same religion, i.e., if you are distributing in, say, Giwa, which is almost a 100% Muslim community, for example, you find the Islamic cleric has two Islamic clerics will be there, have to be there, and they have to represent Islam and Arabic as sects. Then you should have the supervisory counselor. Then you should have somebody of integrity. Two women and a youth leader. And they're not chosen by government officials. We give the template, you, community, choose these people. These are the kind of people we want. Choose. So it was a bottom-up process. They brought these people. Oh, you are the chairman. Okay, amongst the 7 of you, choose a chairman. They will choose among themselves. From there, you are the leaders. Okay, go get us number of vulnerable households. Get their names and their numbers. When they bring this list, then we match it with the list we have that we've generated from the telecoms companies and see. Then we call again these people to verify. Hello, am I speaking with Tony Alabi? He lives in Banawa. Okay. But if the true caller says you are Ibrahim Musa, I've been issued, you are disqualified. So all kinds of quality control and checks went into the process. But you cannot satisfy people, and people will always run away with their imaginations. But of course, the people we serve, the God that created every one of us, is our witness, and we've done what is humanly possible within the limits of human error, and I think we will be judged kindly. Thank you.
All right, just be part of this conversation. COVID-19 here with us, but again, we're finding ways, to get out of it. Government's effort in all of this, especially in Kaduna State, how government has performed, and of course, we all felt the impact of the lockdown, rightly or wrongly, but we're getting back to living our lives. May not be normal because it's a new normal now. But again, put in your thoughts on the experiences, of course, back home that you've had with the lockdown, and of course how you'd want government, to what more can government do for you in this lockdown? So numbers to call to be part of this program: 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, or 070 87 800 989, 0708 78 00 987. Call us on these numbers. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Tualabi.
Good morning.
Good morning to your guest.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Engineer Manu.
All right, engineer.
Yeah, I will say congratulations to the people of Kaduna State, and we say well done to the governor. But I will still talk on the issue of palliative. That's not the fact your guest have said something about it. Yeah, there was shares of palliative, but I think that shares of palliative was not done the way it ought to be. Because I can't imagine, Mr. Tualabi, a family that is more than 4, 5, given a new deal of Indomie, then a cup of granite oil, and they will say that they have shared palliative. I think it's unfortunate. I was expecting the way they asked us to advise the government how will they go about this shares of palliative. The same, we say, if they could not go to the polling units of each constituency, we have 24 local governments, and we have 4 polling units which people meet. If they will not follow that method, NEPA do share bill to every look and cranny. Why can't they use that same method? I think we have these resources, not that we don't have the resources, but the way the something goes, honestly, is nothing to write home about. Because we are trying to prevent a pandemic. How do you prevent a pandemic? You have to put all the machinery in place so that this thing will not escalate. But the government, I don't know, or those that organize the thing did not do it very well. Because
Emmanuel, we got you on that. Yeah. We got you on that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, we'll take more calls and then come back to our guest in the studio. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning, Tony and Daddy.
Good morning.
Pius calling you from Kaduna.
Pius, right?
Yes, Pius from Malawi.
All right, Pius, let's hear you.
Good morning to your guest.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Pius. How are you?
Thank you. I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Kaduna State government, more especially Governor Nasri El-Rufai, for reopening our own worship centers. And I would like to urge the good people of Kaduna State. It's not only to reopen the worship centers. Please, everybody should just go and worship and go back to God. It is high time for us to start doing the right thing. Not to be disturbing the government, including me, that they should reopen our worship centers. If we should go back to God, Kaduna State and Nigeria at large is going to be a very good place for all of us to be. So that is for that. Issue of palliatives. If I got him right, he said that marketplaces and schools still remain closed. So now, what are they doing in order to give palliatives to more especially private school teachers that they are at home for good 3 months now? Many of them, no salary and nothing. Most of them are graduates. He knows that. And the government knows that they are graduates. Just because there is no, they did that one. And their own salary is nothing to write home about. And for the past 3 months now, there is no salary for them. And they have families. So what are they doing in order to help private school teachers to give them palliatives? We know all the private schools in this Kaduna State. We can follow the schools and get their names.
Okay, Pius.
The market people, those people that are in the market, we know them. We can get their names.
Okay.
Give them palliative. So I would like to urge the federal government to do something on this.
All right,
good morning,
Pius.
Nigerians.
We got you on that. All right, I'll take one more call and then we come back again. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
My name is Mike Baba from Romi.
All right, Mike, let's hear you.
I want to say a very big thank you to our governor. Only that, the most difficult thing to manage is a human being. As such, people should give him the support so that this thing will be limited. Secondly, not opening the places of worship that matters, but we should get close to God. Let us get close to our Creator. We should push away wickedness, hatred, and be kind. The good Lord will see us through. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right, Mike Baba, thank you on that. Okay, I'll come back to you, Madam Ibrahim.
Yeah, let's start from the rear. I like the way Mike Baba from Romi said, opening worship centers is not the crux of the matter, but we should really devote to God and worship Him, and all else will be added onto us, so to speak. I share that sentiment, and I think a lot of Nigerians too. And it's left for our clergy and clerics to really say this in their homilies and sermons on Fridays and Sundays. And we only hope and pray that Nigerians get the right lessons. We are happy with the outpouring of love during this pandemic, whereby people, public-spirited people, regular people with just barely enough to get by, coming out and helping their neighbors. It was awesome. It was good. The governor commended that. And I'm using this opportunity to thank the good people of Kaduna State for that. Then let's go to Pius, talking about private school teachers who have not been, who has been without salaries for 3 months. Well, really, this too is beyond me to say. We're very realistic here. This is what government at the higher level may consider. I say may, but let me give an opinion. My opinion as Malam Ibrahim. You see, people, government has no business in this. It's left for the proprietors of these private schools, since they are running, they should show empathy in this time period. Because when you open and people start voting with their feet and thinking that, okay, in my time of need, you didn't come. You are just looking for your own survival. Look, I'm going to another place where my bread will be buttered. I think you lose patronage, you lose good hands, and thereafter you lose a market, So I think proprietors of private schools, though they are not a charity, they are there for business. They too have not been opened, have not been getting school fees being paid and everything. But they should also consider even putting their teachers on half salary. Because a school is as good as its teachers, not the structures. And good teachers don't come by to a penny. So it's a smart business strategy to try and keep these teachers even if you're not making money. Because if you go to the length and breadth of Kaduna, you hardly find science or mathematics teachers, for example, or even good English teachers, for example. So so what am I saying? All good teachers are an asset to a school, not the structures. If parents know all the good schools in Kaduna, and the network, they say, and this was passed round. If they know your school has lost teachers and it has really lost standing, in the ranking of good schools in Kaduna, they will remove their children. So it's really a symbiotic affair. So even in the times of lean times like this, whereby you're not getting salaries, school fees, you should also try and do something for your teachers. For Engineer Emmanuel, I think what you said is very, very unfortunate that people were given a cup of noodle, a cup of curry. Kaduna State never did that. Even in the first phase of the first round, that was full of complaints. Pictures were shown in social media, but they were not Kaduna State distribution. They were private distributors who can give what they can afford. But it was made to look as if it's a Kaduna State thing. That is why in the second round, we said, no, let's brand our own palliatives. Let's brand our own palliatives to run away from this mischief. And you said, okay, we can use polling units. That will also expose us to politicization. There are some places that are APC strongholds. What happens to the minority there? If you go and use Ngweseki polling station, for example, you know the dominant voting pattern in Ngweseki, for example. If you go to Roni, you know the dominant voting pattern. What of the minority? Then you talk about NEPA bills, use it as a yardstick. Most of us, that's what the electricity companies are complaining of us. Most of us still light. Most of us are omitted. But again, that brings us to another challenge. What of people with prepaid meters? They may not be affluent because these prepaid meters were actually installed free. So it's not as if they had money before. That's why they could afford prepaid meters. So there are all kinds of things. And every of these things were considered at the committee level before what we see as a foolproof system was evolved and devised. And we're happy with the distribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibrahim Musa. And that will just be about the size of it on Perspectives today. I'd like to give you thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Tony Alabi, for having me. And listeners, thank you very much for hearing me out. I'm grateful.
That was the Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to the Governor of Kaduna State, Madam Nasir Rufai, Madam Ibrahim Musa. And so we'll come back with Perspectives tomorrow. Same time, same station. Docas, thank you for connecting us with the people and wisdom. Thank you for putting us in the pictures. Perspectives will come back tomorrow. Good morning.
Invicta FM.